All right, it's time to get crazy and design a round board. Now, as I mentioned in the last video, you cannot just make a circular board. You gotta cheat your way to one. Now, there's a vague reference on how to make a circular board on the ExpressPCB site, and I will put the link for that information down below. Now, this article appears to pertain to ExpressPCB Classic, so I am not sure if it would work with ExpressPCB Plus. But I'm going to demonstrate it in this video anyway, and if I've read their instructions correctly, we should be able to make a reasonably round circuit board. So according to ancient and dusty texts found on the ExpressPCB site, you can make a circular board by using lots of points and straight edges for your board edge, and I mean a lot of them. So what they suggest is that you draw a circle the size of your circular board. So for our demonstration, we're going to use a diameter of 2 inches. So we're going to come over here to Arc, and we're going to click on the drop-down menu, and we're going to select this top circle right here. I will click on that, and now I'm going to come up here to Shape, and I'm going to select this drop-down, and I'm going to go to Outline like that, because we don't want our circle filled. The other thing I want to check is I want to make sure that I am on either the top copper or the bottom copper layer for this. And as you can see, we are on the top copper layer. Now I'm going to move my mouse down here to the drawing area. And I'm going to place it close to this point right here. Now I'm going to hold down the Control key, and then I'm going to hold down the left mouse key, and I'm going to drag like this and make a circle. I'm going to release the left mouse key, and there's my circle. Now don't worry about making your circle the exact size. We're going to take care of that in a moment. And just so you know, holding down the Control key while dragging to make a circle, rectangle, etc. allows you to draw perfect circles or boxes. But more on that in another video. Okay, so now we have our circle. Now we want to make the diameter 2 inches. So we're going to select the circle if it's not already selected, and obviously it is because it's grayed out. And now I want to select the Select tool, so I'm going to press Escape. And I'm going to come up here to the Size and Position box. And in the data field that says Width, I'm going to click in there, do a Control-A, type in 2, come down here to Height, click in there, do a Control-A, type in 2, and hit Enter. And now we have a 2-inch diameter circle. So now I'm going to grab the circle, and I'm going to drag it up here. And I want to put the 4 points of the circle on my grid points, just like that. So now the top, bottom, left, and right points of my circle are sitting on a grid point. Now I'm lining them up on grid points for this demonstration to make it a little bit easier. Now if the diameter of your circle does not line up with grid points, you're going to have to change your method slightly. Next, I want to put crosshairs into my circle and divide it into quadrants, and you'll see why I'm doing that soon. So I'm going to come over here to Trace. I'm going to select Trace, come back here, and you'll notice I now have the Trace tool selected. And then I'm going to come up here. I want to make sure that I'm putting these traces on the top copper. So come up here and look. Yep, it's the top copper. If it wasn't for some reason, just do the drop-down menu and select top copper like that. Now I want to draw a trace from the top to the bottom of my circle. And I like to let these crosshairs overhang the perimeter of the circle just a little bit. So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to click here, come down here, click here. Now I'm going to left click to stop drawing, come over here, there's the center, click here, then right click, and there are my crosshairs. Next, I want to determine how many line segments will make up the perimeter of each quadrant of the circle. Now for this demo, I'm going to use 6 per quadrant. If you use more line segments per quadrant, your board edge will obviously be smoother. So I'm going to select the Select tool again. I'm going to use the Escape key, and I'm going to come over here to this edge, and I'm going to double click 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that gives me 5 short segments and 1 really long segment here. And I'm just going to start with these 6 segments on the left. We'll get to the other segments in a moment. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shrink my board outline. Now I could have done this at the beginning, but we're going to do it here. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to select my board. And the reason I'm going to shrink the board is it's going to make it easier to move the points that we add in for the line segments. Now my circle is 2 inches wide. Now somewhere along the line, depending on how we place our circle, half of it will be to the left or below the origin point. So if the circle has a radius of 1 inch, let's make our board a bit larger, say 2.5 inches high and 1.5 inches wide. So I'll come up here to width, click in there, Control A, 1.5, come down here, and we're going to leave the height at 2.5 inches, and you'll see why in just a second. Now, next we want to come down here and grab our circle and our crosshairs. The instructions say that we have to move our circle so that an edge, a point on the edge, on the perimeter of our circle, has to be on the origin point. We will either put this point, this point, this point, or this point onto our origin point. And I'm going to select this point down here. So I'm going to grab the circle, and I'm going to drag it down like this. And snap is on, so it's going to snap right to our origin point. Now I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut 0, and now we can see our entire drawing. Okay, now I'm going to come over here, I'm going to click right here and deselect everything. Now remember, our board edge is going to be made up of a lot of little segments, and we already divided this left-hand side of the board into 6 segments. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to select our board, and I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to grab this point, this corner point right here. And I'm going to drag that down, and I'm going to let it snap onto our circle right there. Now I'm going to zoom in like this. Maybe a little bit more. I think we can. That looks good. And now because we have our board outline selected, I can see all those points we put into the board. So now I'll just simply come over here and I will grab them. And I'll drag them over like this. And try and place them on the perimeter as best I can. Now, if I wanted to, I could do a zoom extents with 0. I could come back and I could start adding more points here. So that gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I could come up here and I could grab this edge and I could place it right there. And I could work my way around the circle like that. Let's zoom back in down here. So as you can see, the outline of your board is going to be made up of a lot of short segments like this. And of course, the number of segments depends on how round you want your board to look. And of course, I can find no mention on the ExpressPCB site about how short a line segment can be. Now, if the info is out there somewhere, leave a comment to help us all out. Now, right away, you can see there's a problem here. My points are not on the board perimeter. And the reason they're not on the board perimeter is because we have snap turned on. So the points are snapping to the nearest snap point. So what we want to do is we want to turn snap off now. And remember, to turn snap on and off from the keyboard, you can just do a Control plus period, like that. And now I should be able to grab this point and get it right on the board perimeter, just like that. Let me line those up. So I can do this all the way around the circle by adding points to each edge and then placing 6 points per quadrant. Easy, right? Well, don't blame me, talk to ExpressPCB. Now the other thing you'll notice, those segments are not equal in length. Now what can you do to make them equal or almost equal to give the board a rounder and smoother look? Well, hang on tight. I'm going to show you, but you might not like it. This method is not easy, but I have used something like it before to design circular parts. So let's reset and get a clean sheet of paper here. Well, it's sort of a crowded clean sheet of paper, but it's going to work anyway. So once again, the first thing you want to do is decide how many straight segments we want each quadrant of our circle to consist of. Now for our demonstration, I'm going to use 6 segments again. And like I said before, if you wanted a smoother and rounder board edge, you would use 10 or more depending on the circumference of the board. But 6 will show the technique, and it won't take very long to do. So here's my board again. And if I click on the outline of the board, and if you look closely, you'll see I have divided each side into 6 segments. Also note that I made the size of the PC board smaller again. But it is a little bit bigger than my last demo, and that's because things are going to get a little cluttered on this drawing. And as you can see, I've drawn the crosshairs on my circle again. Now with the horizontal and vertical lines dividing our circle, it's easy to know where the center of the circle is. And since our circle is centered on a grid point, all of the spokes that we will be adding are going to snap to the center of the circle. So the first thing we want to do is go grab the trace tool, just like this. And once again, we want to make sure that we are drawing on the top copper layer, or whatever layer you want. And one thing we want to be sure of before we start doing this is we want to make sure snap is on. So let's come up here to grid. And yep, just make sure that snap is on. All right, we're going to come over here now, and we're going to start right here in the center of our circle. We're going to draw a trace. And we're going to draw it out, and we're just going to come out a little bit past the perimeter. It doesn't matter how much. Okay, I'm going to left click and then right click, and there's our first spoke. Now, it doesn't matter what angle the spoke is at, because we're going to change that right now. We're going to do the select tool. We'll press escape, and I'm going to select that spoke that we just put in. And now, if we look up at the size and position box, we will see a data field right under the XY that says angle. So we've decided on 6 segments per quadrant on our circle. So what we want to do is we want to divide 90 degrees by 6, and we end up with 15. So each spoke is going to have 15 degrees between it. So we'll come up here to the angle. We'll click in there. We're going to do a Control A. We're going to type in 15 and hit enter. And there's our first spoke. Now here comes the fun part. We're going to leave that spoke selected like that. It's grayed out, it's selected. And we're going to do a Control C. Then we're going to do a Control V. And then we're going to click in the angle box again, do a Control A. We're going to type in 30, and we're going to hit enter. And there's our next one. Now I'm going to do a Control C. I'm going to do a Control V. I'm going to click in the box, Control A, type in 45. There's the next one. Now I'm going to keep doing that until I hit 75 degrees. So Control C, Control V, Control A, 60, enter. Control C, Control V, click. Control A, 75, enter. And now we have 6 spokes, depending on which way you start counting, all spaced 15 degrees apart. Now, I did a Control C and a Control V every time. You don't really have to. I could have selected this guy, done my Control C, my Control V, typed in 30 up in the angle box. Then I could have done Control V again, and it would have pasted the new copy right back here. And then I would put 45 into the angle box. But I just wanted to show that you could do a Control C, Control V for each one. Whatever seems easiest for you, you do that. Okay, now we have 6 spokes. That's great, you say, but I don't want to place 24 spokes or 50 or maybe 80 spokes around my circle. Well, you don't have to draw them separately. So now I'm going to come up and I'm going to grab these 5 spokes just like that. Be careful, don't grab the perimeter. I'm going to do a Control C, and then I'm going to do a Control V. Then I'm going to grab my copies. I can grab any spoke I want. I'm going to grab this one. Hold down the left mouse key, and I'm going to drag them over like this. And let's just let ExpressPCB slowly scroll to the left. I'm going to go a little bit more, just like that. All right, now I'm going to place where they converge on a grid point. Right there like that. Now, with them still highlighted like this, I'm going to come up to the Arrange box up here, and I'm going to select Rotate Left. Just like that. Now, I'm going to grab these, and I'm going to drag them over here, and I'm going to let the convergence point of all my spokes right here snap onto the center. Just like that. Now what I'll do is I'll come over here. I'm going to deselect everything. And I'm going to grab those 10 spokes, but I don't want this vertical one, so I'm going to hold down the Control key, and I'm going to click on that vertical one and deselect it. And now I'm going to do another Control C, a Control V, come over here, grab any spoke, bring it over here, come up to the Arrange box, and I'm going to select this one, Flip Vertical. Then I'm going to come over here, grab this, put it there, and there's my circle with 24 evenly spaced spokes. Now I'll do a 0 on the keyboard. I'll highlight the whole thing, grab the circle, drag it over here, pop it onto the origin point. Whoops. Just like that. Center it. Deselect it, and just like we did before, I'll come over here, I will select the board edge. I can zoom in like that. Now I want to turn snap off, so I'll do a Control I. Grab my first point, bring it over, and I can put it right there where the spoke crosses the perimeter. And I missed one, didn't I? Let's try grabbing that one. And I can work my way around the entire circle, and I can get these exactly on that point where the spoke crosses a circle. If I really want to, I can zoom way in. So let me show you what it looks like when it's all done. So here's what the board looks like after I move all the points onto the perimeter of the circle. So the next thing to do is come over here, highlight everything, including your circle, and delete it. And there's your kind of round board. And like I've said before, if I doubled the number of spokes, my board edge would be even smoother than this. Now, this may not be the best method, but it works, as you can see. Is there a better way? Well, I'll tell you, I don't know. I'm basing this method on the small amount of information I can find on round PC boards on the ExpressPCB website. I think the important thing to remember when doing a circular board like this is that some point on the perimeter of your circular board, it has to be on the origin point down here. Now, of course, you are going to have negative X or negative Y numbers in your design. In my example, anything to the left of the center of the board is going to be a negative X value, and you can see that if you look down at the XY mouse coordinates. That doesn't really affect anything in your design, I don't believe. You just have to remember that if you're placing something to the left of the origin point, it's going to have a negative X number. Okay, once again, I want to point out I am showing this method for educational purposes. Now, I have no idea, absolutely no idea, if this would meet with ExpressPCB manufacturing requirements or just how long an edge segment can be. Now, maybe someone out there who knows can leave a comment or point us to where we can find that information on the ExpressPCB website. I think that would be a really big help. All right, I'll see you in the next video where we discuss a really odd thing about board edges that I discovered, unfortunately, after writing the last 2 scripts. We'll see you then.